Hey guys, welcome back to Too Short of 10. My name is Wes, and today we're going to be talking about the accident. So, it all happened on the 4th of July weekend, 2026. My mother and father in law and my 15-year-old nephew were in town visiting us the week before, and they had decided to extend their trip a little bit longer. And so, we decided that we were going to take a day trip to Silver Lake. And on our way there, we had left a little later than we were supposed to. They ended up closing the highway down at a certain section before we got to Muskegon because someone had passed away. And so we drove a couple miles down this dirt road and we got back on the highway. But I felt like the Lord was really protecting us in that way because we had left later than we were supposed to. And had we left on time, we might have ended up in that accident and one of us might have gotten hurt or something in that accident. So we were just thankful that the Lord protected us on our way there. And so we left, we got back on the highway and we got to our destination. We ended up going to the Little Sauble Lighthouse first. That's where my wife, my daughter, and my mother-in-law were going to hang out and wait for us while we were at the Dune Buggy rental. And so we got there and we had brought a cooler with lunch and for us to make sandwiches and snacks and things, and our lawn chairs and our daughter's stroller. And so we had gone up to the lighthouse and we got down on the beach and we set up everything. And we were there for maybe 10 minutes or so. And then we decided that we were going to go. And while we were there, I had realized that there was no phone reception there at the lake. And so I had told my father-in-law, why don't you take us over to the Dune Buggy rental, and then that way you can come pick us up later if you need us or whatever. And so he took us to the Dune Buggy rental, and we got there, we watched all the videos that they had for us, we signed the waivers, we got into our rental, and we started on our way to the dunes there, the Silver Lake sand dunes. And so we got out there, we decided we were just going to travel around the area a little bit, that we just got familiar with the area. And so we drove around a little bit, and there was a lot of people there, and I'm not one of those people that like to drive crazy or, weird or anything, and so I was being cautious, but I was being extra cautious because there was just a lot of people out there, and I was afraid that someone was just going to come around a dune and smack into us or something, and so that just made me nervous of how many people were out there. And so we were going slow, we were driving around, and they told us to stay away from the puddles and things, and so we stayed away from those, and there were a lot of puddles out there because it had rained that weekend. And so we went over to a section where you can only drive south in the dunes. And so we were over there and we ended up going on the southern portion of it first because it's kind of split in half. There's like a driveway where you can come in into the dunes, and there's like a northern section and a southern section. The southern section is larger. So we started at the southern section, and as we're there, we're looking up at the dune, and I noticed how steep it was, so I floored it up to the dune, the top of the dune, but we didn't make it to the top. We were about a couple yards away, and so we ended up having to go back down, and we readjusted, went to a different area, and I floored it. We got to the top, and I stopped, and because we just wanted to look at the area, I didn't know what was on the other side of the dune, and so we stopped, and we looked around, and it looked okay, and so we went down the dune, and we went all the way through there and on that southern portion. We did that about 3 times. And then after the 3rd time, we drove up to the northern section of where it's just southbound only traffic. And it wasn't as large or as fun as the southern section, so we decided not to do that again. And so we did it that one time, and then we went back to the southern portion and we went over the dunes. We rented the Dune Buggy for 2 hours from 1 to 3. And I thought, I'm kind of done. I've kind of been bored. I've had my fun. We can leave. I'm content. And I didn't end up telling him that. I figured we could just go one more time and then I'll tell him. And so it had only been 45 minutes that we were there, and so we went one more time over the dunes. And as we finished, we went back. We were going to go back towards the top, and as I was making the right turn, it goes back to a straightaway. And I tried to turn the wheel back to the left, and it wouldn't turn. It wouldn't budge. And so I kind of took my foot off the gas. I tried to turn left more, and it wouldn't go. It just jerked to the right, and we started to roll. And as we were going down, just as an instinct, I grabbed the bar that was there, and I crushed my hand at that moment. And we ended up making a 3/4 roll, so we went over to the roof and then over to the passenger side, and that's where we landed, on the passenger side. And I was nervous. My hand had hurt, but it didn't feel like I had hurt it that bad. It just hurt like I broke it or something. I've never broken a bone before, but I just thought maybe I broke something in my hand, and I never looked at it. I was more concerned about my nephew, that if he was hurt. So I asked him, I said, "Are you okay? You know, is your arm okay? Can you feel your fingers?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "My arm's fine," and because I couldn't see his right arm, and I was nervous. And he goes, "Yeah, my arm is fine. I can feel my fingers." He pulls it up out of the sand, and it was fine, and he wasn't scratched up or anything. Nothing major happened with him, and he was trying to get his seatbelt off, and as I was trying to help him, he says, "There's blood everywhere." And I was like, "What?" And I'm looking around like, yeah, sure enough, there's blood dripping everywhere. And, I look at my hand and I realize, you know what, I'm going to lose these 2 fingers. And I'm an OR nurse, if you didn't know that. And when I saw my fingers, I knew that they were gone right away. And so I helped my nephew out of his seat, and I got myself out. He climbed out, and these 4 guys came over. They helped me out of the Dune buggy. And the DNR, they ended up coming over. I sat down by the Dune buggy. They came over, they asked me a bunch of questions, wrote up an incident report. The fire department came, they got me, and they took me down to the ambulance in the parking lot. And they ended up getting an IV in me, and they gave me pain meds. And they gave me 2 different pain meds, 2 doses of the first one, and then they gave me a second pain med, and it didn't touch anything. The pain, after I looked at my hand, the pain was unbearable. And I've never felt that pain before in my life. And so when they gave me those meds, I was hoping that I'd get some relief, but I didn't get any. There was no relief at all. And so we started going to Muskegon, because that's where the nearest hospital was, the closest level 1 trauma center. So they took me to Muskegon, and we got there, and they got me into the trauma bay, and they were doing all these x-rays and CT scans and everything. Nothing hurt. The guys in the ambulance, the paramedics, they asked me, "Are you hurt anywhere?" I'm like, "No, the only thing that hurts is my hand." They're like, "Well, your head, your neck?" And I'm like, "No, it doesn't hurt." They're like, "All right." So it was just the same thing again at the hospital, and they kept my hand covered. I asked them to, so that way my nephew didn't see it. And my nephew, when we had gotten in the accident, he ended up taking off one of his shirts and handed it to me to cover up my hand. And so, anyway, they get me into the CT scanner, they get me out, and they see everything's fine. They take my seat collar off, and then they ended up getting me a room in the ER rather than just the trauma bay. So I got my own room, and my wife ended up showing up shortly after that, and it was just an emotional time seeing my wife and stuff. And I was able to contact her when I was in the ambulance, and so that's how they knew that we were at the hospital. But while I was in the ambulance, I was able to contact her and talk to her on the phone, and I just told her, I was sorry. And there wasn't anything to be sorry about. I hadn't done anything reckless. I wasn't being foolish. I wasn't being careless. It was just an accident that had happened. And I was sorry that I made her scared and nervous of what had happened to me and my nephew, and I just felt bad about it. So I told her I was sorry, and we were crying together. And the trauma doc ended up coming back in, and he wanted to give me a block in my hand, which I was thankful for. And so as soon as he put the local in, the pain just went away. And I just remember feeling just relief after it happened. And the trauma doctor, he was talking to me and telling me, you're going to have surgery. The surgeon's going to come in, he's going to see you, and he's going to evaluate your hand. And I said, okay, I know I'm going to lose my fingers. He's like, okay. And he was very nice and very patient with me. He told me the surgeon had been there for 5 years, and I was like, 5 years? Like, that is not long enough to be working on my hand. I don't care how good they are. 5 years is not long enough to be doing surgery on my hand. They are not experienced enough. And he was like, well, he's great. He's awesome. He's also a plastic surgeon. He's done many of these surgeries before. He's going to be great. I'm like, all right, whatever. It's not really I can pick and choose. It's a trauma surgery. So they ended up taking me to the pre-op area, and I took my contacts out. And shortly after that, the surgeon ended up coming in. His name was Dr. Ostrich. He came in, and it was all a blur, but all I cared about was his white hair. I saw his white hair as soon as he walked in, and I was like, you know what, praise the Lord, I've got somebody that's experienced, that's going to be working on my hand. and he knows what he's doing. And so he talked to me for a little bit, and I knew I was going to lose my fingers, and I asked him, just to confirm, like, is there any way I can save my fingers? And he said no. He's like, with the damage that's done to your hand, there's no way I can save it. My finger, if you know any medical terms, I'm just going to share with you, what it looked like. I'm not going to share you a picture, but my ring finger was completely degloved above my ring, and then my left pinky was just dangling by a piece of skin at the second joint. And so, but yeah, so there was no saving my fingers, and I knew that right away. And right before they rolled me back, my mom made it to the hospital, but she didn't make it inside yet. And so she called me on the phone, and we prayed together on the phone, and then they took me back to surgery. And then I came out of surgery. My mom, my wife, and my daughter were there. My in-laws, they ended up leaving while I was in surgery because they had to fly the next day back home. And so they left while I was in surgery. And my parents, they were there and trying to encourage me. And they ended up driving me, my wife, and my daughter home that evening. We got home about 12:30 in the morning, and we said goodnight to my in-laws and my nephew. And the next day, my in-laws and my nephew woke up, and they said their goodbyes before they left. And the doctor, before we left, he told me that I needed to make an appointment for the next week and go in and see them. And so I went in and I saw them, and they took the bandage off, and I wasn't scared. I wasn't nervous. I was ready to see it. My wife, though, she was very upset after they took it off, and it hit her harder than it hit me. And that evening we went home together, and we cried before we went to bed together. And my wife, it was funny, she ended up having a eulogy for my fingers, and we were looking at pictures of my left hand, and pictures that we had taken the week before of me holding my daughter, and I still had my fingers. And 4 days before the accident happened, we had actually taken a picture of my hand, my daughter's hand, my mom's hand, and my grandpa's hand, just as a generational picture. And so it was kind of ironic that we had taken that picture, because that picture was of our left hands. And it's not like we planned it that way on purpose. It's not like we said, oh, we're going to do our left or whatever, but we just all stuck out our left hands and took our picture. And so we have a picture of the 4 days before when the accident happened. And you know what? I'm just so thankful to the Lord that I have 8 fingers. I still have 2 hands. I can still do things. I can still care for my daughter. I can still help my wife with things around the house. I can still, live life and serve the Lord and do things. The Lord spared my life when I had that accident, and I'm so thankful for that. And I'm very thankful that I still have 2 hands, and I've got 8 fingers. And I'm glad that it wasn't my dominant hand. I don't have to relearn things like writing or anything like that. Or I have had to relearn things, as you've seen on my channel, and as I plan on doing with my channel. I do have to relearn things, and some of them are a little simple and some are a little harder than others. The next video I want to make is of me crocheting. Crocheting is something I like to do like when I'm watching TV or just chilling. I like to crochet. I haven't picked up a crochet hook or yarn since the accident, and I'm looking forward to relearning how to do that. It's going to be different. I usually hold the tension of the yarn with my pinky, and I don't have a pinky anymore, so I don't know how it's going to go, but we're gonna do it together, and I look forward to making that video. And thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening to me and learning about my story and watching me relearn life as I relearn life with 8 fingers. And thank you so much for that. Thank you for praying for me as well, and for thinking of me. And we'll see you guys soon. We'll see you next time. We'll go see the lighthouse from here.